Chelsea just appointed one of the best football managers in the world. So why, despite how perfect it looks on paper, does Chelsea's future still seem a bit up in the air? Because here's the thing, the surface level story writes itself. Big name, great CV, but underneath the hype, this appointment is actually an admission of a multi-million-pound failure by the board. Welcome back to RLC Chelsea. It's been a minute, but with the Xabi Alonso era finally underway, we have to look past the boardroom PR and look at how Chelsea's manic 2024 summer set this whole domino in motion. Let's set the scene properly because the context matters a lot. So Enzo Maresca comes in during the summer of 2024 and genuinely, he does exactly what was asked of him, if not even better. Chelsea get back into the top four for the first time in years. They win the Conference League despite being heavy favourites, and then they go on a somewhat straightforward run to the Club World Cup final. But make no mistake, Chelsea dominated the European champions in that final to become the literal champions of the world. Real tangible silverware. By any objective metric, that is a wildly successful season under Enzo Maresca. And the early days of the ownership, who hired and sacked Graham Potter and Mauricio Pochettino previously, seemed like a lifetime ago. But behind the scenes, something wasn't right. Maresca had been airing public grievances about his lack of support from the ownership for some time. And look, I'll say something that not everyone is saying. It's now pretty well understood that the whole time he wanted the Man City job, and it is one of the big reasons he left Chelsea. I don't fully blame him. It makes a bit of sense, but it does leave a sour taste in my mouth, to be honest. He completely waived his salary to get out of the remaining years in his deal, and I think it was due to a range of reasons that Maresca left Chelsea, not quite because the sporting directors forced them out, although they definitely had a part to play. So then we get Liam Rosenior, promoted from our sister club Strasbourg, where he had a very good run. The logic seemed to be continuity with the BlueCo multi-club model, keep developing the young squad with someone who fits the structure that other Premier League clubs were circling. And I understand the logic, but in hindsight, that appointment was a mistake. He lasted 106 days. Players were calling him a supply teacher behind his back. There was no authority in the dressing room. And when Brighton came and put 3 past us without reply, that was it, gone. And the sporting directors Paul Winstanley and Lawrence Stewart, alongside Behdad Eghbali, reportedly have acknowledged internally that it was a mistake as well. It was a learning curve because what that whole episode showed them was something that they fundamentally believed that they didn't actually need. But they were wrong. They needed someone whose name commands respect the moment they walk in the door. So Chelsea had a shortlist. Andoni Iraola was on it, who apparently genuinely pressed people in the process, and now Liverpool boss. Marco Silva was considered, who's just become Benfica manager. They are both solid Premier League managers, but they went for Alonso. Why? 3 reasons, and they all matter. Reason 1, the CV and the training techniques. The incentive-based contracts that Chelsea have been handing out mean the players are invested in results. They want to win financially as much as anything else. This isn't a dressing room full of complacent players on guaranteed fortunes who can coast, but it is a squad with big personalities, real talent, and real ambitions. A core of genuinely elite players on their day: Caicedo, Reece James, Colwill, Palmer, João Pedro, Estevao, players who are untouchables in the squad and could hold their own at any club in the world, I do believe that. But they need to be led, not just coached. Xabi Alonso walks in with 2 Champions Leagues as a player, a World Cup, a Euros, and an unbeaten Bundesliga title as well. He is also coming in straight from Real Madrid, which is a very different universe to Strasbourg or Leicester City. Nobody in that dressing room is rolling their eyes. But here's something that doesn't get talked about enough. His CV is one thing, but the way he operates on the training pitch as a manager is different. This is not a manager who stands back with a clipboard. By all accounts at Leverkusen, he was physically involved in sessions, passing balls himself, demonstrating passions, and apparently still doing his signature ping in training. That 50-yard diagonal that made him one of the best passers in the world. And the word from Leverkusen was that he genuinely was one of the best players in training all those years after living and loving it. I think that changes the dynamic completely. A manager who can show you rather than just tell you is a completely different proposition, especially for young players. Having that on the training pitch every day is a real advantage. Reason 2, the tactics. I want to spend proper time talking about Xabi Alonso tactically because he is a fascinating fit for this squad. And I think the tactical side of this appointment is actually the most exciting thing about it for the long term. At Leverkusen, its base formation was a 3-4-2-1, but that label undersells what was actually happening. In possession, it consistently transformed into something closer to a 3-box-3, 3 centre-backs providing a foundation, a double pivot in midfield as the engine room, 2 wing-backs bombing forward, 2 attacking midfielders operating as 10s, and a centre forward at the tip. It created a box 4 in midfield that controlled space, dominated possession, and gave opponents an almost unsolvable problem. Who do you track? And it's not a rigid shape, it is really deeply fluid. Rotations happening constantly, plays interchanging, the wing backs becoming effectively wide attackers. Alonso's system is more of a set of principles than a fixed shape. Where to be, when to move, how to create overloads, and switch it out to the other side. At Real Madrid, he switched to a more of a 4-4-2 out of possession, 4-3-3, but the same principles, the same roles stayed the same. It was more just to accommodate different personnel, which is also exciting because he shows that he can slightly alter things depending on who he has at his selection. Now let me map that onto Chelsea's squad because that's where things get really interesting. Cole Palmer in the right 10, that is literally custom built for him. He drifts, he finds pockets, he connects play and creates chances from those half spaces between the lines. Florian Wirtz played as the left 10 at Leverkusen where he became a £100 million player. Palmer is a comparable profile, arguably with even more creative output and a higher ceiling. Moises Caicedo is one of the double pivots. Caicedo can genuinely do everything that's asked of him in that role. He breaks up play, he progresses the ball, he covers enormous ground. He's one of the best midfielders in the Premier League at doing everything, and that double pivot at Leverkusen relied on that sort of athlete. But having other skill sets just makes everything so much better. I think Colwill and Reece James as line breakers from either side of a big commanding centre-back who would probably have to be a new signing. That's the Leverkusen back 3 template. The outer centre-backs are not just defenders, they're really there to spark attacks, progress the ball, step out with the ball and pass it through the lines. Reece James and Colwill are definitely two of our best passers at the club. Yeah, if you put a dominant physical presence in the middle and you have the defensive foundation that Leverkusen had that won them the Bundesliga. Quenda and Esteval are both young, they're fast, direct and brilliant in the final third. The question is which exact roles they end up taking as they develop. Gusto is a high ceiling wing back with the athleticism to play the advanced Frimpong style role Alonso used at Leverkusen, even if his final ball and decision making still do need sharpening. João Pedro could be the focal point up front as he brings the fact that he can drop deep, link play. He scored 15 non-penalty Premier League goals in his debut campaign, which was under 3 different managers by the way. And when fit, Lavia really gives you another technically elite option in the double pivot. And that's still assuming Enzo and Cucurella end up leaving, which is up in the air as I speak. Now let's look at the numbers because this is where it actually gets interesting. Leverkusen in the 23-24 campaign posted an XG of 73.6 across the Bundesliga, an average of over 2.1 per game, while only conceding an expected goals against of 29.9. That's a differential of plus 43.7 goals. That is extraordinary numbers. Completed over 89% of their passes and their press was structured mid to high block that forced teams wide rather than an all-out aggressive press, but it's always organised. Chelsea this season, and this is one of the more interesting stats, were actually classified as a patient build-up team with a patient shot selection, according to the league-wide tactical analysis of the Premier League. That means we had the ball a lot but were conservative about when we took our shots. We also had moments of being the best pressing team in the league as well, just not consistently enough and not with the right structure. There were flashes of everything but no coherent identity running through it. That's the gap Alonso feels. He doesn't just add quality, he adds clarity, an actual identity, a game model, a way of playing, a set of principles that every player should understand down to a T. And for a squad that clearly has the technical ability to do this, it's a really exciting fit. Now reason 3 is the timing and a bit of luck for the sporting directors. Let's be completely straight about this. If Xabi Alonso's spell at Real Madrid had gone well, even better than it did, Chelsea definitely aren't even in the conversation of having Xabi Alonso as their manager. He joined the Bernabeu in the summer of 2025 and his underlying numbers were actually pretty remarkable. 34 games managed, 24 wins, a win rate of 70.5%. He won a Clásico early in the season and went on a 7-game winning run across competitions. These are not numbers of a failure, but results did dip in the winter, a Spanish Super Cup final loss to Barcelona, defensive frailties coming to the surface, and the dressing room, and this is the overriding factor, reportedly fractured. The likes of Vinicius, Bellingham, Valverde, 3 of the most powerful players in world football, reportedly not buying it. And once that happens at the Bernabeu, the manager is the first one to go. He left by mutual consent in January, and that left a mark on his reputation, at least publicly. But here's what I think about Chelsea's squad versus the Real Madrid squad. Real Madrid senior players are extraordinary talents in a club where political power inside the dressing room is almost unprecedented in European football. That is a completely different environment to Cobham. Chelsea's core is young, they're still being shaped, and there's no Vinicius situation waiting for Xabi here. The window opened because of Madrid, and sporting directors when Stanley Stewart along with Bedad Eghbali did move fast. And to be honest, they were lucky, very lucky. Alonso was their obvious first choice, head and shoulders above everyone else on the list in terms of what Chelsea needed. The player profiles, the pedigree, the playing style, the fit with a young technical squad. They did give him the official manager title rather than the head coach in order to give him more incentive to join. I'm just hoping that a job title has actual weight, and I'm worried the egos of specifically Bedad Eghbali and Paul Stanley don't get in the way and we end up exactly right at the start, looking for a new manager to start another new era. So without that Real Madrid chapter, I don't think any of this happens. Think about what happens when clubs are desperate and are really short of options. They go in a direction that doesn't quite work. Look at Michael Carrick at Man United. He's not a bad manager at all. Someone who could do great things, but probably not the answer for that club in the long run. And comparatively, Chelsea I think are the more exciting project, despite them finishing third last season and us 10th. But we did get our man, and it does show that the ones in charge do want the best for us, but have been making mistakes that could realistically ruin us. So what should we realistically expect? The situation that Alonso inherits is quite tough. Chelsea finished 10th in the Premier League and missed European football entirely for next season. Now look, on one level, that's not the worst thing. Less games, less travel, a full pre-season and weekly matches to actually implement his ideas. More time on the training pitch to get his principles across. If you're a new manager wanting to build a culture and install a system, a lighter fixture calendar has its silver linings, but the financial reality is harder. No European football means less money coming through the door, and that matters in a transfer window. It's not just about the cash, it's about the pitch you can make to a player. Come to Chelsea, fight for the title, get back into Europe. Players want to play in the Champions League as it is the best of the best competition. The conversation is harder, but I still do think we can attract players. We are Chelsea at the end of the day. So this transfer window is going to be crucial. And here's where the manager title and the recruitment influence Alonso has been granted becomes even more important. He needs to bring in players who suit his system, who can understand his principles, who raise the quality in the areas that we need. Whether he's actually given the authority to do that will define whether this year is different to the other. On the Madrid question, I do think it's important not to overcorrect. His stint did end badly in terms of the standards of the club, but with the win rate at 70.5%, the highest of their last 5 managers, his underlying numbers were strong, and some fans are almost calling for him back. What Madrid exposed was a specific vulnerability around managing a particular kind of dressing room that he wasn't ready for, and only a few managers in the world can do it. Chelsea's dressing room, however, is different. The players are younger, they're still building careers, they've got stuff to prove about themselves. They don't have the egos of Vinicius Jr., Mbappe and Bellingham, although that does get you to where they are. I'm cautiously optimistic about Alonso, it's exciting. I'm not blindly shutting out any potential things that could go wrong, but I do think he does suit us very well. And it is hard not to be optimistic. So the bigger picture, are we actually in a new era, or is the BlueCo model still just rinsing and repeating? I want to end on this because this is what actually matters most, and it's going to be the biggest question about Xabi Alonso at Chelsea. We've had 5 permanent managers under this ownership. They've spent £59 million in compensation just to get rid of them. And the pattern every time: new appointment, big contract, conflict or chaos, sacking, repeat. And for that pattern to change, I think something structural has to change. Not just who's in the dugout, not just another yes man or a puppet. And the signs are there for real that this could be the time that stuff actually changes. The manager title rather than head coach, that is significant. And that's real authority over recruitment, but we will have to wait and see. The 4-year deal gives genuine intent that to give this man time. I think they are grateful that they have got this caliber of manager. Whether we're Stanley, Stewart and Eghbali can actually hold the line though. Stay patient when results may dip. Back the manager in the window without pulling the rug. That is the real test. Because every time before it feels like the ownership have found a way to undermine it. But if this is different, if the structure is real, then Chelsea have a genuine foundation to build something over 4 years. A coherent identity, a system that suits the squad, and leadership on the training pitch that the players actually respect. On paper, this is the best constructed appointment since the takeover, and it's not even close. Now Alonso just has to prove it. So back to where we started. How does Chelsea land a manager of genuine world-class pedigree? Apparently it takes 4 years of costly mistakes, £59 million in compensation, a supply teacher who lasted 3 months, a brilliant Italian who just wanted to be somewhere else, and a very timely collapse of a Real Madrid tenure that opened a window nobody could have predicted that would open. It's not ideal, but here we are. And like I said, I'm genuinely excited about this, but I am cautious. I know what the ownership are capable of. It could go wrong, but tactically, culturally, in terms of what the squad needs, I look at Xabi Alonso and think this is perfect. So July the 1st, we find out what he's made of. Let me know in the comments, are you fully bought in, or are you still, I'll believe it when I see it? And if you enjoyed the video, subscribe, there'll be plenty more as the summer continues.